there's Callan. So it's Callan had the schism in the late 19th century. It fought a referendum about daylight saving, which it did actually go in line with the national view to go ahead with it. It was worried, the people in Callan were worried that the cows wouldn't know where to go to be milked in the darkness, and that their lives would actually be shortened by daylight saving as well. There's so many stories about Callan that we've known, the nuns calming the schism through visitation and kindness for the poor. And it has a storied past, an interesting present, an exciting and hopeful future. Our town is every town in Ireland. Our town is my town and it's your town. I run a cultural space called Fennelly's, which is in the centre of the town on Bridge Street, which used to be the actual kind of commercial centre of Callan. This is a photograph of Bridge Street during downpour in the 50s. Fennelly's is just opposite this building, which is Powers Co, which was the keystone building of Upper Bridge Street, a drapery that was like Aladdin's cave when you would go into it. I remember from my childhood. So I suppose we're very lucky in Callan that we have a number of artistic ventures, including KCAT, the Tony O'Malley Painting Residency, the Friary House, Fennelly's, the Callan Workhouse Union, among others. It has two intentional communities for people with special needs, Campbell and Larsh. And about 4 years ago, Equinox Theatre, which is the theatre company within KCAT, began to look at Bridge Street and its issues. As you can see, there are traffic issues in the past. Before the town was actually bypassed, this was the main thoroughfare between Clonmel and Dublin. So often there would be two Bulmers trucks wedged on the bridge. So it has traffic issues for sure. But when the bypass came, one of the things that the traffic actually did do was preserve it in a kind of nearly a module from the 1950s. Not very much work was done on the facades because work couldn't be done. It was too kind of choked up with traffic all of the time. When the bypass came, some work was done that was very unfortunate, but mostly in all, the street has continued to be preserved. But now we still have a two-way traffic system that we're hoping to maybe address in the future. But one of the artists from KCAT was this is just a little this is actually Evelyn's one here, which was she's a wheelchair user, and she did a study of Bridge Street. She would travel from the bus stop to KCAT via Bridge Street every day. And she did this study about how she actually navigated Bridge Street and the issues that there was with navigating it as a wheelchair user. Now, there are issues of navigating it as an able-bodied person as well, for sure, but this really did bring into kind of clear focus the issues of mobility on Bridge Street. From there on, then, a number of other members of the Equinox Theatre Group decided that they wanted to kind of figure out about Bridge Street. So during the Etaoin Festival, which is our festival of inclusion in Callan, we ran a little tea and coffee shop, a pop-up tea and coffee shop during the festival, where we asked people to come, and in exchange for a story about Bridge Street, they got a cup of tea and a slice of cake. So we collected a huge foundation of stories over that 9 days, and ongoing over about a year and a half, until we began the first, I suppose, iteration of the Bridge Street project. So the Bridge Street project is really what I'd like to kind of focus on this presentation. This is the poster that we did for the Bridge Street project. This was actually an old photograph from the 1940s when a tanker got stuck in Bridge Street. As you can see, the tanker actually kind of takes up all of the space of Bridge Street. And what we were talking about was nearly the negative space of Bridge Street. You know, this common space that it does belong to all of us and belongs to none of us. You know, nearly a Schrodinger's cat of a space. But so the Bridge Street project was what we wanted to do was to engage with the street and how we could maybe figure it out and make it better, look at its past, look at its present, and look at its future. everybody that we talked to about Bridge Street 2 years ago was completely dismissive of it. It was a dead street. They would use terrible words like derelict and dead and gone and over and finished. It used to be the hub, and now it was done. And we wanted to kind of figure out how we could bring this back into the focus and reignite and regenerate our town centre. So we collected all of these stories over a year and a half, and from the foundation of these stories, we worked with theatre professionals, including Equinox, Devious Theatre, and also architects called Studio Weave, to basically have an architecture response and a theatre response to Bridge Street. So the architectural response was one that I suppose I was most involved in, although I did act in the theatre response as well. But basically, I was one of the collectors of the stories, and having Fennelly's on Bridge Street as well, that was where we kind of had all of our meetings and engagements with the community about what we were going to do. So the theatre response culminated in a 80-strong community cast membership on the street and in the buildings of the street, with an audience capacity of 110 for each performance over nine evenings. We went into all of the buildings as well, where there were small vignettes, all inspired by these stories that we had collected. The architectural response was, it ended up being about a 4-week engagement with the street, cleaning the street, completely cleaning the bridge, having a street feast on the street, and then there's me with a power washer cleaning the bridge. This work was the thing that really got the community on board. When they saw you out in your wellies with a power washer on an old building that had had no attention for about 5 years, and you're cleaning it off and you're caring for it, that's when we got the hearts of Callan kind of on our side. Cleaning over the bridge, and basically the architectural response was a design that was designed by Studio Weave called Reflected Elevation, to turn this street, Bridge Street, into this street, which was basically Bridge Street reflected, each facade reflected from one side onto the other side to visually represent all of the stories and exchanges that had happened on the street over the last 1,000 years. I mean, it's a medieval town, so 800, conservatively. So this was our theatre, this was our architectural engagement, and this kind of became the stage for the theatre engagement as well. So during this architectural engagement, we had absolute volunteers. We had one master painter, I was the producer, and everybody else was volunteers. And we had road closures, we had we got out signs and everything. We closed the road every evening for about 3 evenings for about 2 weeks, we had a lot of issues with that. And this is the design then of the reflected elevation. You can see there, we did pretty much the whole street, and this is in a 3.5 week window. So it was an amazing undertaking. Edsy McHugh needs a big shout out. He was our master painter, and he went above and beyond. And we had Bernie Macaulay, there's a local sign painter. We decided that we wanted to bring Powers back to its original 1950s, just to kind of give a kind of a nod to that, and then have the reflection on the rest of the building of it there. So this is Bridge Street. Also alongside the Bridge Street architectural strand were traditional skills workshops that we ran for free for all ages. This is the furniture making, which used architectural details from the street, and the palette of the street that we were using. The palette came from the town as well. This is Fillion carving. The Fillions are those kind of curved wooden kind of nearly like scrolls that you see on shop fronts. This is an original Fillion that had been found in the rubble of one of the shops on Bridge Street that we were making copies of with the children and a master carver. Blacksmithing workshops. So all of these traditional skills workshops were in relation to traditional shop fronts. So like the bar that you would see at the front of to stop people knocking through your window when they were parking their bike there. Concrete mold making, lettering. You can see there as well.
And all of these were, this is a nice photograph because it shows the shadow of Fennelly's coming down onto the reflection of Fennelly's as well. So all of these workshops, I suppose, really brought people in. And then after these workshops were complete, then we had the theatre. So people were prepared and brought along with it. And all of the stories that we were responding to as well brought people with them as well. So the whole kind of ethos of this was to really kind of charge the street with its past, to give it hope for its future, if you know what I mean. So the second iteration then of the Bridge Street project, apologies for the pixelation of this photograph, was courtyard screens. So we decided that Fennelly's courtyard, Fennelly's is the blue building that you saw there, which is the one that I manage, has a courtyard as well. Would be an arm off of the Bridge Street street, and to develop a space within Bridge Street that didn't have any traffic restrictions and could be used by the community as well. This is it being used during different events that I've hosted in Fennelly's, and we brought it started to. So after this is the year after then that first year. So we invited people to come and meet us and talk to us about what they'd like to see the future of the street be. We had many meetings and ideas. We invited people to anonymously submit their ideas and hopes for the future of the street. Now, through doing that, we had a really an amazing kind of dearth of ideas. And what we also asked people to do was to fictionalize their problems and solutions as well, and to kind of make up characters that could solve. Like, for example, Evelyn Morrissey's, she had a superhero that could like pour chocolate into all of the potholes on the street. But then we met up with a group of second year students who have made stories all about using the characters, using the kind of different scenarios that we did in these civic engagement meetings, and they basically put together narratives. These narratives are now going to be developed into a storybook, which is with illustrations that will then be given to the planning department in our local county council. So that's kind of the third iteration of the Bridge Street project, but also we ran a courtyard screen. We planned and developed an awning structure for Fennelly's courtyard over 4 weeks and realised it over 1 week. So using traditional skills again, like wood shavers and pole lathes and wood carving, we were able to invite people from the ages of 7 to the ages of 120 to partake in these workshops as well for free. You can't let a child anywhere near a mechanical lathe, but you can let a child at an actual pole lathe. One of the most brilliant things I've ever seen is an 8-year-old get the feel of a bit of sweet chestnut in a pole lathe. It was just magnificent. This kid, Molly, there, natural pole lather. And so these are two of our participants. We had 2 tiers basically during the 7 days that we realised Courtyard Screen. One was the building where we had a master carpenter and we had skilled volunteers helping us with the actual construction of the Courtyard Screen. And then we had the pole lathe turners and wood carvers as well. These are our wood carvers here, and in the background you can see the construction going ahead. So there was an awful lot of health and safety loopholes to go through, an awful lot of considerations and paperwork to do with that, but we pulled it off well. And even during the whole actual construction of that week, we managed to have a concert as well. So this is the end result, which is Courtyard Screen, which is an outdoor cinema space in the courtyard of Fennelly's that can be used by the community now. And the courtyard continues to develop with a clay pizza oven, running breakfast residencies in Fennelly's where we invite artists to come and live in Fennelly's for a week, and every morning kind of give an insight into their practice to the people who come to breakfast. And by artists I mean playwrights, writers, visual artists, filmmakers, and that continues. These are 3 of our best volunteers in their John Lennon t-shirts. And that just, the John Lennon t-shirts were our volunteer t-shirts during Bridge Street Project, which came from a story that when John Lennon died,
we had a local man who was about 12 years old when the famous John Lennon died, called John Lannon. And because he was called John Lennon, Powers Drapery, who was in the first slide that I showed you, actually knitted a jumper with John Lennon written on it, a blue jumper with hot pink letters called John Lennon. John Lannon's mother thought it would be a great idea for the 12-year-old John Lannon to have a jumper with his name on it, for which he was unmercifully bullied by his peers. But we decided that that would be the inspiration for our volunteers' T-shirts during the Bridge Street project. Another example of bringing a past story into contemporary context where there can be a bit of a laugh about it and you can learn something about the history. So this is the theatre engagement, and that's me. Thank you very much.